Hi guys, it's Claire Nakti. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have done an astrological statistical analysis of 140 of the most beautiful women of all time, as well as 130 of the most beautiful men, to use data to consider which astrological factors are truly the biggest contributors to creating a stunning appearance. Honestly, the results were some of the most exaggerated in this beauty research than perhaps anything else I have done. And it verifies traditional astrological associations in some amazing ways. So even if you're not that interested in beauty, stick around anyways for some strong validations of astrology that this research uncovered. To try to objectively determine the best group of women to use for this research, I searched through the listings of the most beautiful from respected publications throughout the decades in Hollywood, Bollywood, and all around the world with C-rated or higher verified birth times. I did the same grouping process for 130 men. The comparison of these two studies then brings to light which astrological factors emphasize general appearance harmony versus which placements exaggerate masculinity versus femininity, and their archetypal manifestation in terms of sexual dimorphism and its link with attraction. The similarities and differences between these two separate pools of individuals brought up perhaps the most interesting facets of this research. So once I had all the results for these two separate surveys graphed for all the different placements that I have listed on the screen now, I then found the placements within each factor that was the most emphasized, if any. I didn't want to just ask something like which moon sign is the most beautiful or something like that. I wanted to openly ask which factor of anything in the entire chart brings beauty. So I weighted the statistics to determine the most important contributing factors to the final outcome of beauty. Through this video, I will be highlighting these 4 most significant factors for each gender, and I will rank them in terms of statistical weight on screen as I go. And that brings me to a first of the key factors that arose statistically here. Venus in the first house. Venus rising appeared in this survey almost double what would be mathematically average. This is the feminine planet of beauty and harmony itself, the emblem of attachment stirring attraction between individuals, existing to inspire union and love through the form, empowering its natives to inflame a room with sensual desire. In the male survey as well, this was the top house for Venus. Placing Venus in the first house, the most important house in the chart, shows this planet's influence in your life overall, on your body and identity. Venus takes any type of foundational essence and artfully brings it to its highest aesthetic attraction potential, granting things like symmetry, one of the first aspects to objective beauty that has been proven across cultures. Venus is said to rule the beauty of the eyes, and it takes different polarity eyes of all shapes and sizes and makes them equally striking. In Ayurveda, there are 7 bodily tissues called dhatus, and Venus rules over Shukra dhatu, the sexual reproductive tissues. All the dhatus produce a waste, but according to many in Ayurveda, it is only Shukra dhatu that exists without doing so, because Shukra, the final tissue, is simply produced from harmony amongst all other tissues in the body. It is the glow of vitality and health that comes when everything else is in balance. And in that same way, beauty can be understood to be a glistening refinement amongst all sheaths of the body, a pinnacle of merit and signification of true energetic purity, what Shukra means. From the conversion of Shukra, Ojas, the vital essence, are formed, and then Ojas become a part of every dhatu, saturating the entire form with splendor. Lakshmi, who rules over this planet, is known as the goal, the end product, the exotic and rare, vibrant essence that comes when something is brought to its total fulfillment, and that's why her tantric form, Kamala, is the final Mahavidya, the goddess in her form as the total development of her power on the material plane. The outward blossoming of the divine into all of creation, the connection of truth and beauty. Venus and Lakshmi rule precious gems, all that is most exotic and rare. In that way, women with Venus on the ascendant are often like the crown jewels of their foundational Nakshatras, their unique polarity type brought to its glistening, rare, sensual peak. Venus loves to inspire, to enkindle passion, to unite beauty with beauty, and through their merging to birth more beauty, to always work towards perfection. Venus insists that instead of dualistically suggesting that because something is beautiful it is shallow, it is actually that beauty has such a stimulating and indescribable impact on the mind and life force, because beauty is the stunning outer refinement arising from an overwhelmingly vast and complex depth of harmony amongst all the sheaths of the body and spirit.
Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, regarde à toi.
So Venus in the first house was certainly significant, but the most important factor in the female beauty survey overall was also something having to do with the first house, this time a specific ascendant nakshatra, Pushya Nakshatra. Which arose almost 2.5 times the average. Pushya means nourishing, and another name for it, Tishya, means auspicious, as this nakshatra is often called the most auspicious traditionally, and is overall very lucky. Its cow udder or lotus symbols both indicate the ability for this nakshatra to nourish potential through the material or spiritual plane. Amazingly, not only was Pushya in Cancer overall the top ascendant, but it was also the top moon. Although with moon placement, the statistics were more exaggerated when sorting by Rashi, emphasizing Cancer moon, moon in its own sign, as the third most important factor in the female survey, and encompassing then the power especially of Ashlesha, as well as some Punarvasu here too. Cancer is a moon-ruled Rashi. Moon and Venus are both feminine planets and both said to be Vedic Kapha planets in Ayurveda, which brings underlying airy structure balanced with softness, youthfulness, and femininity. While Venus in the first house harmoniously details and balances the form, Cancer Rashi, and Pushya in particular, is a magnetic feminine material to be made out of foundationally. While Venus's bija is the bija of attraction, clean, it is Moon's bija, Shreem, which is said to heal Venus in one's chart. Venus is the planet of virility, empowering men and women both, while Moon is the receptive and magnetic element of the feminine that inspires virility, pursuit, and passion in others. Virility and strength exists in equal correlation to the softness and gentleness that inspires it, and Cancer Rashi's energy emphasizes that. Saturn is Pushya's nakshatra lord, and it brings something very airy and ethereal to the appearance. Saturn is said to be the most similar planet to Rahu, which also creates an alien-like appearance, and these were 2 out of the 3 of the top nakshatra foundational essence types in this survey, with all primary placements combined. To illustrate the otherworldly look that Saturn creates through very wide-set eyes and high cheekbones, Saturn-ruled nakshatra women are often cast in roles as mermaids, for example. On a side note, this particular trope tends to concentrate the most in Uttara Bhadrapada, fascinatingly ruled by Ananta, the serpent of the deep, but it can't be denied that the mermaid-like facial appearance and role casting extends to the other 2 Saturn nakshatras as well. This is something that happens with all nakshatra trines, even though the energy of a certain trope may really be the most rooted in one nakshatra. Due to the interchangeability in many ways with the personality and appearance traits between the 3, people unconsciously often bunch it all together. It is in Pushya, which has the moon Rashi rulership, where Saturn's influence is especially balanced with feminine abundance and juiciness. You can see here, for example, how in Vanity Fair's survey of the most beautiful women in the world, the 3 ranking highest were all Pushya women. In the Brady Bunch, it was Marcia who was described as the perfect, beautiful sister, and she was played by Pushya women in both the original and the 90s parody remake. Saturn is the emblem of control, and moon rules the senses and is the face, so Pushya tends to have an emphasized face, but that is also super controlled in regards to features, extremely, even shockingly symmetrical as well, and well regulated. Another primary judgment found in research for universal attraction is actually averageness, which sounds contradictory, but that essentially means that averageness leads to unique levels of beauty because one perfectly embodies the averaged out, most well-regulated face of all of those around them, nothing too large or too small. Each feature is a balanced, lovely medium. Just as I explored in my last video the way that Pushya people are naturally drawn to extreme austerity, it can definitely be said that controlling your senses is a very important element to making yourself beautiful, energetically or literally. So their inner ability to control their senses is spiritually reflected in their well-controlled facial physiognomy. Harmony is produced through regulation and control, which is why Saturn is exalted in Venus's sign, Libra. To have Venus harmony, you have to be regulated, and Saturn is the regulator. Now, the second most important statistical factor overall for women was the nakshatra placement of Sun in Dhanishta. After Pushya, Dhanishta was the second most prominent nakshatra overall, as this top sun placement also followed Pushya and Ashlesha as the 3rd highest moon nakshatra. I've previously explored in depth the power of Dhanishta in fields of fame, beauty, and glamour, which has another name that means the most famous. However, I'm going to talk more about Dhanishta later in this video. I also find it interesting, although not a key statistical factor, that the top house for Ketu, the south node, was the 1st house, which shows a possession of natural primal power in that area of the body that comes through birth. A review of a few of these things is then if you look at a major established beauty figure like Margot Robbie, whose birth time is not available, you can consider that in light of this, she has 2.5 times the likelihood of the average person to have Pushya ascendant, which would further make sense because that's the Rashi of her Ketu, which was most commonly placed in the 1st house here. If not that, she has almost twice the likelihood of the average person to have Venus in the 1st house, which would create Taurus ascendant. She's very often compared to other Rahu Nakshatra natives due to her foundational essence, but you can then compare the nakshatras in these rashis to consider the outliers who are compared to her appearance to refine it further. So there's obviously a ton of possibility for other ascendants for her, but it is interesting that this research can possibly help to consider what she may have. Okay, so now for the male survey. The reflections coming through the male survey open up the ability to contemplate a 3rd key factor found in research to create universal objective beauty, and that is secondary sexual characteristics and sexual dimorphism. The possession of exaggerated features that indicate the health of the underlying sexual hormones, thought in evolutionary biology to be signs of fertility. So whichever gender you are attracted to, these are the features that are produced from that gender's sexual hormones. On an energetic or spiritual level, the male emphasis would create an appearance that would encourage perceivers to want to be receptive to that person or receive energy from them. Because male sexuality is penetrative, the female emphasis would create an appearance that would encourage others to pursue or pour energy into it, as the female sexual organ is receptive. For women, sexual secondary characteristics tend to emphasize features that suggest a healthy level of youth and neoteny, like small noses, full lips, enlarged eyes, shorter and wider facial structure, due to the stronger biological connection between youth and fertility for women. Venus promotes beauty overall, while Cancer Rashi seems to emphasize the most feminine-oriented beauty in this regard, which makes sense because Moon is said to rule the female sexual hormones, and the Shrim Bija, for example, is said to help balance female hormones. For men, secondary sexual characteristics include things like narrower lips, more narrowed and penetrating eyes, larger facial bones, and so on. For them, appealing levels of sexual dimorphism seems to be the most emphasized in the fixed, sthira, sun-ruled nakshatras of Uttara Falguni and Uttara Ashada. In this case, for the top statistical factor, even more exaggerated than Pushya for women was Uttara Falguni ascendant for men at 270% the average. It's such an affirmation of traditional associations with the 1st house, and of astrology in general, the way that of all the things that could have been significant, it was in these 2 separate poles, the ascendant nakshatra. Also affirming to the true astrological patterns here, just like Cancer was the top Rashi for both Moon and Lagna for women, Virgo was not just the top Lagna for men, but also the top Moon.
Latino Caribo. Mondo Bongo, nobody said it was fair.
While Uttara Falguni was the key ascendant, Uttara Shada was the top moon, Mercury, and Venus placement for men. The dimorphic element of this is emphasized in that, interestingly, the top moon for men was the least present moon for women, probably due to the detached and individualistic nature of this sign, which does not deeply like to be perceived or magnetize energy in a feminine manner. This obviously, too, makes sense of my previous explorations of the womanizing behavior of these nakshatras, and especially Uttara Falguni. In order to have the natural opportunity to sleep with many women due to the selectiveness of female nature, men would generally need to be very attractive. For example, dating app research has discovered that men rate female attractiveness exactly how one would expect, a bell curve peaking at average. Women, however, are extremely harsh with their ratings, rating 80% of men as below average. Now, the second most important factor for men was, again, a placement of the auspicious Pusha nakshatra, but in the men's case, it was to possess Jupiter in this nakshatra, where he is exalted. Strength of Jupiter seems very important for men here. Its second highest nakshatra was Mula, which is the nakshatra of its Mula-Trikona degrees.
Gino Caribbo, Mondo Bongo.
The other highest nakshatra for Jupiter was Purva Bhadrapada, the height of Jupiter amongst the nakshatras. All of these suggest an accumulation of merit and energy. So if you think about male sexuality, and that dimorphism towards male characteristics indicates a being who is able to give abundant energy, radiate energy, etc. in correlation to the endlessly giving sun. Similar is the hugely auspicious Jupiter, showing one's storehouse and accumulation of energy being vast and substantial, creating an appealing masculine appearance. Now that I've covered key differences between the genders, I want to explore some really interesting similarities between both studies. Again, one similarity was Venus in first, which grants attraction abilities for either gender. Another one was Lagna Nakshatra being the most important factor overall. And the third was different placements in Pusha Nakshatra. Next, the fourth most important factor for male beauty exactly matched the second highest for women, Dhanishta Sun. I wanted to compare this to a larger study of general fame to gain some more insights and to speculate a bit about why this might be. And so I compiled many of my studies together of famous and influential people of all kinds: writers, composers, directors, artists, occultists, scientists, businessmen, and so on, coming to a total of 845 influential individuals. It's important to keep in mind that there was definitely a stronger inclusion of men here, just in light of men having had more opportunities to influence fields throughout history. I then compared this to the study and found that not only was Dhanishta Sun and Uttara Falguni Lagna the two most statistically important planetary placements, but Venus in the first was also the most important house placement overall. These mirrored the most attractive men closely and got me thinking about the concept of pretty privilege. This is because if you take out, for example, the 100-person sample of writers, it doesn't reflect the whole, or the 100-person sample within this of directors, or that of scientists. Uttara Falguni isn't the top ascendant, and Dhanishta isn't always the top sun, but if you specifically take out a sample of the most attractive individuals amongst the whole group, it mirrors in a few key ways the total study of influential individuals in general, which suggests that it is actually attractiveness which is a contributing factor to overall success. It flipped my mind from thinking that perhaps these signs were coming up just because they lead to fame, and made me instead think that they lead to attractiveness, which then grants fame and influence. The concept of pretty privilege has been proven in research. I quote, "Physical attractiveness has important social consequences. For example, beauty is associated with upward economic mobility. It has long been noted that there exists a 'what is beautiful is good' stereotype, whereby attractive individuals are perceived to possess a variety of positive personality attributions. Attractive people are more likely to be hired than less attractive individuals, and attractiveness can also influence judgments about the seriousness of committed crimes. For example, attractive people are shown to pay lower bail. So if you think about it, our success in life is very much tied to our ability to gain favor from others, which opens us up to being well-liked, to receiving better opportunities in life, and rising above our peers."
You know what's wrong with you?
No, what?
Nothing.
Venus in the first house as the planet of partnerships shows the ability to benefit from your unions. Both Uttara Falguni and Dhanishta also suggest this traditionally. These are two nakshatras which are noted to be able to gain through their connections more than others, likely gaining this Shakti from their natural tendency to be physically attractive, since it is proven that physical beauty is highly linked to being able to gain favor from one's peers through the positive spin that beauty brings to our unconscious judgments of another. Uttara Falguni's god is Aryaman, the god of friendships, agreements, and contracts, gaining benefits and prosperity through unions, areas where attractiveness brings a huge advantage.
Such is life.
Dhanishta Shakti is to give abundance and fame through connecting the resources of individuals together with the wish to gain summit amongst one's peers. The attractiveness of this sign allows him or her to make better connections, to be more exalted amongst their peers, and to achieve this nakshatra's wish. On my Patreon for this video for Jeshta Plus members, I'm going to be sharing a special analysis of the 3 recommended Shakti Beejas for beauty based on this research with some explanation of their uses, for a spiritual approach to working with these energies. I am also going to be sharing more of the graphs for this research. In my 1-year female path course, it begins with helping you set up a daily practice if you request it that is most compatible with your chart personally in terms of goddess energies and Shakti Beejas, to help you with a range of things in life based on your personal goals, including, if you wish, magnetism and beauty. Although there are certain powerful general beauty Beejas, it is most effective to analyze your chart personally to see what missing energy would bring the most harmony in your personal chart that then leads to blossoming potential overall. Reflecting on these findings, I've learned even more about what kind of energies a person wants to emphasize or remedy in their chart in regards to maximizing attraction and femininity. I decided to end the year with something a little more simple. I have been doing documentary after documentary for almost 2 years now, so I thought I would do just a fun little video. I'll be back pretty soon with another documentary that I'm working on, but for now, happy holidays to all of you and enjoy the new year. Thank you to my generous and supportive patrons. The Ray Body level patrons are listed on the screen now. And a special shout out to my Abhijit level patrons, Ray, Ashley De La Cruz, Avnish Bongar, Shashi, Samia Hogan, Teresa Green, Eric Linden, Maddie DRX, Michael M, Aiko, Kristen, Crystal Perales, TTHP, Karamsum Safehold, John Welter, Jordan Andaluz, Jazz, Nikki, Andre, Anjali, Tantric Tara, Ricky Augustine, Stephanie Cruz, Brianna Sanders, Gabriel Schneider, Annette, Nicola Murphy, Syncope, Sasha Ravich, Judy Ajoma, and Bella. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.